Welcome, everyone. We're here live at CoSM in New York with a beautiful group of people that have gathered. And we have Richard Rudd live in the UK, and he's here to share a beautiful journey with us as well. And I just want to thank you for tuning in, and my heart just continues to open when I'm feeling this global community of people engaging with this dream together. That so many of us have decided to come on board and find out how to romance our shadows, how to embrace the gifts hidden in the in-between places, and the most challenging and the most ecstatic love that we can bring into the world. So right now, my dearest friends at Wonderland are creating art and music. Eric Nez is in an art vigil to connect here with the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors and the transmission art that this beautiful temple brings. And Amma and Theo are playing music, and small groups around the world are gathering just to tune into this webinar or watch the replay and be in the field together. This is a great gift of a time when we actually get to combine our auras both physically, when we have the opportunity to join together and be with one another, and that we have this gift of technology and of the inner technology that's always here connecting us across the world. So thank you and welcome. And we're so honored to let Richard Rudd take us on a journey into this beautiful transmission through life as art and through the DNA and through the wounded healer. Richard Rudd.
Thank you. And welcome everyone. Welcome CoSM and you wonderful retreat participants who made the commitment to be there. And I really want to appreciate the effort it takes to actually arrive at one of these events in the physical body, and also want to invite and welcome everyone from the non-local field from around the world. It's an amazing thing when you're sitting on these machines and then that little yellow button in the corner comes on and goes live, and you have no idea how far and how wide the transmissions like this are reaching. So I really appreciate everyone coming on, and not just live now in the local field of the now, but also the moment of the future. So people who are coming on and seeing this in the future, which is always something that really amuses me, that you're watching this in the future. How can that be? And yet you're also in your own now, and we're all in the now, and it's whether it's in the future or the past. That's a great joke. So it's great for me as a family man with family commitments, and and courses for me at the moment are fairly limited. For me to go out there and put on a big course takes a lot of my energy and time, and I can really only manage a couple of those a year. So having the online version like this and being able to connect and talk to everyone here, it's a wonderful thing. And the subject tonight is radiance. Tonight, I say again, it may be morning for you. So what do we mean by radiance? It's a great word, a beautiful word. I thought since the guys at CoSM, you've been talking about romancing your shadows, I'll begin with a story to try and lead us a little bit into what we mean by this word radiance. And the story is about, some of you may have heard it, the story is about an old friend of mine called Hafeez. Hafeez, he's also known as Hafeez of Shiraz, and he's a 14th century mystic poet from Persia. Not quite a contemporary of Rumi. He lived after Rumi, but in the same vein, but a different transmission. Very, very sweet poetry. And he was a very poor man. He was a baker, and so he worked very hard by day, and by night he contemplated, almost the entire night. So he was one of these Sufi type people who had very little sleep, and he learned to get by on very little sleep because he had this devout contemplative prayer that he would continuously perform throughout the night, and then he'd get up and go and bake his bread in the day, and then that was his life. And one day he was out delivering bread somewhere in the local town, and he went to one of the rich areas, and I think he's young at this time. He's like in his 20s, early 20s, and he looks up, and on a balcony he sees this beautiful woman, and he's instantly smitten and falls in love. And by the way, this is a true story. I mean, it's passed into legend, but it has truth at its heart. And so he instantly falls in love, and he can't sleep anyway. He doesn't sleep much, so and he's just thinking of this woman constantly, and he starts writing poetry, and exquisite poetry in her name to her. And then he finds out that she's promised to be married to a rich person, rich man. And so he realizes that she's completely out of reach, as if she wasn't anyway for him, but she's completely out of reach. And one day, while he's in one of his reveries, he suddenly remembers or hears about one of the great Sufi masters, whose name was Baba Kui. And if you went to this master's tomb, there was a saying that if you were able to stay by his tomb for 40 nights and you remain awake, then for those 40 nights, then you will be given the gifts of poetry, immortality, and your heart's desire. And he remembered this. Hafeez remembered this, because this is what the saint said. He said, if you can do that by my tomb, then you will have these things. And so Hafeez, being a romantic and a mystic, he goes to the tomb, and he makes his vigil. And what he does is, as he's writing the poetry, which he writes every night, he writes only to her higher self, her God self. He sees only the highest in her, as you do when you're in love. And the poetry becomes more and more beautiful. And eventually, some of this poetry finds its way to her, as it might in a small town. And she hears it, and she is taken with it, as you might imagine. And who is this strange young man writing this incredible stuff about me? And so he goes every day, through this 40-night vigil, staying awake, saying his prayers, baking his bread, writing his poetry. And finally he comes to the 40th night. And on the 40th night, he drags himself, kind of bedraggled, past her door towards the tomb. And that's the night she runs out and throws herself at his feet. And she is smitten by him. And she finally gives herself to him. And she says, I'll marry you, I don't care. Nothing matters. I'll break the tryst. I'll break the engagement, and I'll marry you. I want to be with you. And Hafeez, he stumbles on. He wants to finish his vigil. And he gets to the tomb. And at the tomb, in his heightened state of consciousness and deep suffering and exquisite rapture, he has a vision of an angel, of an archangel. And the archangel, some say it was a visitation of Gabriel. The archangel is so unbelievably beautiful, more beautiful than anything he's ever conceived of before. He instantly forgets the woman he's in love with, and his love expands to an even wider capacity that inconceivable, that he could imagine such beauty. And it's the radiance of the archangel that causes him to transcend that human love. And the archangel says to him, what is it that you wish? He is standing there with the gift of poetry and the gift of the immortality, and then his heart's desire. What is it you wish? What do you want? And his answer is, I want God. And from that moment, his life was set. And so no longer was he for the human plane, and he became Hafeez, a great poet. And that was how his radiance was triggered or released. And in a way, that's our target. You know, I mean, he set the bar very high, right? Hafeez, very high. That purity, that level of devotion. And you see, the radiance, it's inside every human being alive. And often we don't feel like that at all. We don't feel radiant. You know? Most of the time we don't feel radiant. But it's inside us, this inner light. And our spiritual search is a search to rekindle this radiance, to touch into this incandescence. That's a lovely word. I like incandescence. It means to be lit up from within. And I find it a very potent word, that incandescence, because the light literally is inside us. It is inside our DNA. And this is something obviously that's central to the Gene Keys teachings, that the light is hidden inside us. It's in our DNA. And, you know, there's a scientist, I think his name is, he's got the name Pop, Fritz Pop, I think his name is. I think he's Russian, or German. I think he's German. And he coined this thing called biophoton theory. And the theory that he has explored and spent his life looking into is the notion that our body contains light. It's made up of light, that photons actually inhabit the connective tissue within our cells and in our DNA. And he's done these experiments that show that DNA actually emits light at a range of different frequencies. So it's on the fringe of science, these discoveries. I imagine that one day it will be a more widely understood phenomenon at a scientific level, that we are incandescent beings. And certainly that was my experience that started the whole of this impetus behind the Gene Keys and this golden path and these teachings, because I had a personal experience of that incandescence, that radiance back in 1996, and where I was just spontaneously lit up from within, and for 3 days and for 3 nights. And it was a powerful enough experience to change the course of my life and to alter my destiny. And it wasn't comfortable. I mean, it was very comfortable when I was in it, but afterwards, when the experience kind of I was saturated, and I began to return to what we call normal waking awareness. It was very difficult. It was very, very uncomfortable trying to integrate that an experience of that level, of that dimension, of that other dimension. And some of us have had these experiences either in small or big ways, and we are seeking them, many of us, again, as we should, although we're told we shouldn't by many. And looking for radiance it's a knife edge. You're walking along a precipice, because we know that when you look for something, often the very thing that you're looking for is right behind you or right underneath you. It's in the now, it's not in the future. This is what the mystics tell us. But also the devotion and the longing for that state, for that radiance, has to be honored. And we have to live inside that longing and give it everything, give it our attention and follow it. So it's a paradox, whether to seek or not to seek. We have no choice, actually. We have to seek it because the longing is so deep inside us. And really, radiance, it's all about coherence. It's about the cells of our body acting in coherence. And when our cells don't act in this coherent fashion, you get illness and you get imbalance, whether it's emotionally, physically, mentally. It's all some kind of illness. And coherence within the body, within the aura, within the cells can be increased. That's what evolution is. You know, evolution is all about the striving for deeper and deeper coherence in the cosmos, greater understanding, greater reach, greater, you know, to propel ourselves into new spheres of understanding and new spheres of time and space. Evolution is driving us into greater coherence, and often that means going into, you know, dissonance and deeper, you know, incoherence, if that's the right word. You know, the internet, for example, is a way in which it's a tool that allows us, like now, to come into a much deeper coherence as a collective. And of course, it can drive us further apart because we can become obsessed with it and distracted by it and forget the essential, you know, the radiance that we have inside us. So my experience, my personal experience of radiance taught me that there was a far greater coherence than just physical health. Physical health is wonderful, but for me, it was vast. I mean, I saw the future. I remembered the past. I was in coherence with the cosmic mind, with states far beyond the local field of my body and this being that I call Richard, you know, that I know as, you know, I went through a wormhole, and in that wormhole, time and space dissolved. And, you know, it led me to this place of that the world around us, it really isn't what it seems, you know, it really isn't. I constantly am reminding myself of that, and life reminds me it isn't what it seems. You know, we live in the world of cause and effect, and from where I sat in my experience of radiance, everything had already happened. You know, it was all done, signed, sealed, and delivered. But still, when I came back into this, I forgot that pure knowing, you know, that pure love. I was again a victim of the Maya, so it seemed, of the illusion of time and space and all of this. But, you know, my body and all of our bodies still holds the memory of that radiance, of that incandescence. It's in the DNA, that memory. It's why we seek, because we are looking for that memory. And for me, that's how the gene keys were born, out of that radiance. And, you know, it's, you know, one of the ways in which I rekindle that memory is through the art of contemplation. And contemplation is a really powerful, gentle art to learn. And you learn it as you learn it, and you come deeper into the gene keys, you'll find that you hit a pace of contemplation that is very refreshing, that allows you many pauses, and in those pauses in your life, insights emerge, and flashes and illuminations, and, you know, the memory of the radiance that's inside us comes alive again through that contemplative practice of the 64 gene keys. You know, that's each one of those is an encyclopedia that leads, a wormhole in a way, that leads into the potential for the transmutation of the shadow state, and then the releasing of that radiance from within that shadow. So that's kind of my preamble. What I'd like to do here is use, since you guys are at CoSM, and for those of you who don't know, CoSM is this amazing temple that's been set up in the east coast of the US, and it's set up by Alex Gray, who many of you will know from his incredible art, Sacred Mirrors. And this is the art of looking into the incandescence, the hidden light that lies behind the form, the dimensions that lie behind this everyday form of the physical body. And so when you look at his paintings, you're seeing these frameworks of these other evolutions, these other states, these dimensions that live inside us, that actually are waiting inside us. And they're wonderful, wonderful triggers for the memory. So I've, a long time ago, I got a deep resonance from a triptych, a series of 3 paintings that Alex did, called The Journey of the Wounded Healer. And, you know, this is years later, here I am working with the gene keys, and it's a triple, it's a trinary system, because you're working with the shadow and then the gift and then the siddhi. You're working with these different frequencies to really unlock this radiant light that's inside us. And in these 3 wonderful paintings, this progression, you see writ in a visual form this whole notion of unlocking the radiance that lies within the DNA. So the first painting, I want us to look at these, and we can use them as a part of our contemplation. You know, when I really look into this, it reminds me of one of the gene keys, particularly, and it's the 47th gene key, which is in the I Ching, they call that 47th hexagram oppression. And it's about karma. It's about the ancestral karma and the ancestral anguish that is trapped inside our DNA, and not just us as individuals, but the whole of the human race. This is where the light is trapped. This is where the radiance is trapped. You know, we talk about releasing the radiance. It's because it's trapped, and it's trapped in a looping pattern, a looping genetic pattern that just repeats itself at a shadow frequency. When I say a shadow frequency, I mean a low frequency, a fear-based frequency, a wound-based frequency. You know, that when we look at all the ancestral memories of the fear patterns that humanity holds, you know, it's all inside us. It's all held by the DNA. So all the violence and all the hatred and all the guilt and all of that stuff, all the fear held as memories that holds up the Maya. It actually holds the Maya. It's the structure of the Maya, the low frequencies of the Maya, of the way the world appears to us. You know, and we're a victim. It appears that we are a victim of the vagaries of fate. You know, we don't really have any control. And that's the appearance that's created. And so what happens is these memories just catch us in these spiral loops, these arcs, these bardos, these incarnating patterns. There's all these different mystical teachings have described this, you know, this memory. There's a spiral of the arc of the incarnative pathways as we keep coming back, and then because we're caught in this world of samsara and we don't quite know how to let go of these patterns because they're so deeply wired into us. And I call this the shadow frequency. And I wanted to just take a little dive into some of the Gene Keys terms here, because it helps bring it alive for all of us to remind us, and also any people who are just new to the Gene Keys. When we talk about the shadow frequency, this is the term from the glossary of empowerment that's at the back of the Gene Keys book. Let me just pull it up. The frequency band, this is the shadow, relating to all human suffering. The shadow frequency band emerges from an ancient wiring in the human brain. Such wiring is based on individual survival and is linked directly to fear. The unconscious presence of fear in our system continues to enhance our belief that we're separate from the world around us. And this deep-seated belief propagates a victim mentality. Since the moment we believe we're separate, we feel vulnerable and at the mercy of outside forces. And when we live at the shadow frequency band, then we live within a culture of blame and shame. We blame those forces and people that we believe are outside us. And we feel shame when we believe we alone are responsible for our lives. And once you begin to understand how the shadow frequency controls the majority of people in the world, including yourself, you realize how simple it is to move out of its grasp. Simply by shifting your attitude, you release the creative currents hidden within the shadow frequencies, and your life takes on a higher purpose. Your very suffering becomes the source of your salvation. Thus begins your journey away from those internal patterns and traits that keep you believing you're a victim, and towards the inherent genius and love that is your true nature. You know, this is the pressure of the light inside. So let's just take a breath, and let's take a little meditative journey into this. You can keep your eyes open and you can look at the painting, or you can close your eyes and just come on the journey with me. I'd like to just go into the physical body. So going into our physical body right now, take a breath and turn within. And come with me into the cells of the body, and come with me into the bones of the body, and come right into the density of the bones and the muscles and the sinews and the organs, and right down into the DNA itself, which is in every cell of our body. And what you feel when you go right into the core of the DNA, one of the things that you feel in there is this constriction. You know, this constriction. You know, if you sit with your eyes closed for a length of time on your own in a room with no further sounds for long enough, you will come across this constriction after a while. Sometimes you feel it as a kind of numbness. Other times you feel it as a kind of wall or a wave that is hanging over you, that feels like it might swallow you and crush you. And if you listen to that, if you have the courage, just do it with me for a moment, because it's easy to bring these feelings up. This is a primal sensation. It's primal fear. It's ancient. Every human has it. It's a part of our legacy of being incarnate. And it's where we begin. We have to begin our journey here. There's nothing to fear from the fear. It's just a frequency. It's just a vibration. It's uncomfortable. You can feel it's restrictive. You can feel its ancientness, perhaps. When you have the courage to really, and the time to really go down into it. You may see many things in there. You may remember things. It's a curve. It's an arc. So if you look at it, it goes backwards in time. It leads to the past. That's why it's about memory. And all that memory, that ancestral memory, it's a huge weight that we carry. And that weight gets transmitted through our organs, through our posture, through our words, our thoughts, our feelings. You know, just because it's telling the DNA, you're a victim. It's telling you, you have no control. It's telling you, this is all there is. We know that state. Everyone knows this state. A numbness, a pain. And you know the way to enter this state through contemplation is with gentleness. You unfold it with the spirit of gentleness and trust. You trust it. You open your heart to it. We each have a pure, pure heart. Even when we're in the depths of that darkness and that despair, somewhere in that despair is a tiny pinprick of light. And that light can never be extinguished. And it's the light of our heart. Doesn't matter how small and insignificant that light feels, it cannot be extinguished. That's the incandescence. So go into that light and feel it grow when you give it your attention. Don't give your attention to the darkness, give your attention to the light and feel it grow. It's the purity of your heart and how soft it is and how innocent it is and how beautiful it is. And it's the antidote. That's what it is. It's the antidote for the shadow. It's the only antidote. So whenever you feel this discomfort, whenever life presses down upon you, remember the antidote is inside you. The radiance is inside you. But you have to go in to the darkness to find that pinprick of light. And then you can contain both. You can feel the pain, but you can also begin to surround it with this softness, with this feeling of it's okay. It's kind of okay. It's not okay, but it kind of is also okay. Kind of is and it isn't. And this is the first stage in the homeopathic alchemical transformation of the shadow. Allowing. We allow the shadow. We allow it just to be what it is. We don't try and change it. We don't come in with guns blazing. We just allow it. We just enfold it in this soft space. We let it be. And we let that softness surround it, and we just wait. We just wait without agenda. And over time, that allowing begins to crystallize, and it begins to turn into something much more powerful. So just gently come out. You might like to open your eyes. And we're going to take a look at the second of these paintings. Rather a shocking painting, not a comfortable painting to look at. This is the transmutation. When we have the courage and the valor to look into this discomfort, we enter into the arena of transmutation, transformation, but transmutation because it's a mutation of the DNA inside us. We have to change the way the DNA receives the information of the cosmos. And I call this the gift frequency in the gene keys, the gift. So I say every shadow contains a gift because every darkness contains a tiny light. And that light is within all darkness, everywhere. It's always there. They live together. So when you look into this image and you see this terrifying, shattering, explosive chaos, you're looking at the power of transmutation, and the power of transmutation is through acceptance. Allowing becomes acceptance, and acceptance, it's about drawing back the arrows of blame It's about dropping the burden of shame. Just, there's a beautiful mudra. I've been teaching these mudras, and there are many mudras. Mudras are alignments of the hands. The hands are incredibly powerful. There are many different mudras, and they have different meanings and different roles for accessing different states and different frequencies. And there's a really beautiful mudra for the 57th gene key. And the 57th gene key, I have to just throw it out there. It's the gentle. It's the gentle. And the mudra is the right hand on the heart and the left hand covering it. It's the simplest thing. And when you do that and you place your palms over your heart in that way, and you hold that position releases this softness down into the depths of your heart. So hold that mudra now. Your right hand palm on your chest and the left palm on top of the right. Like that. And feel the softness and the healing nature of just a simple mudra like that. Because this is what will release that radiance through deep self-acceptance and compassion towards yourself. This is about healing, the journey of the wounded healer. We are all wounded healers. We all have that capacity, but we have to, we can only become the healer through healing ourselves. We have to heal the rift of shame. We have to open up the heart. We have to embrace forgiveness, self-forgiveness. We have to send a new frequency into our DNA. And this is the most powerful thing any human being can do. And this is the deepest part of the Gene Keys work and the deepest part of the contemplation, where our acceptance becomes, it starts to turn in on us instead of going out there and out into that relationship and out into that, drama and out into that drama. We turn it back within. And we feel how powerful that is. And when you look at this painting, you see this, at the bottom, this serpent, you see that serpent, three-headed serpent. This is Chiron, Chiron is this incredible power. Now, Chiron mythically is a centaur in the Greek myths, a half human, half horse. But Chiron is about the hands, the chiropractor. It's about the hands. It's the power of the hands, self-healing, the radiance that comes through the hands. We have to turn these hands in on ourselves. So we put our palms on our chest. We put our palms on our belly. Touch ourselves with love. This shattering, it's what I said earlier. It's the breakthrough that there is no death. There is no death. It's a breaking of the identification with the separation, with a separate form, opening up to the holographic universe. Transmutation, immensely powerful. I have a transmutation word here for you from the glossary. The process, not as long, the process of dynamic and permanent change that comes about as you surrender and accept mutation. At the shadow frequency, mutation is something that's greatly feared, as it always challenges an established pattern, rhythm, or routine. Unless mutations, periods of natural upheaval, are embraced and fully accepted in your life, transmutation cannot occur. Transmutation involves a complete shift from one state or plane to another. After a transmutation, nothing is ever the same again. Transmutation only begins to occur at the gift frequency band as your deepest cellular victim patterns are transformed through awareness. Periods of intense mutation in your life are always a great opportunity for transmutation, so long as your attitude is open-hearted and accepting and you embrace and take responsibility for your own state. Transmutation will occur in your life. With transmutation comes great clarity, freedom, and creativity. It is the process through which your genius emerges into the world. Through genius, you can also say radiance. So it's creative. You know, that three-headed serpent, it is creativity. That is the creative mutation itself. It is deeply wound into the fabric of life, this mutative evolutionary spark, this serpent, this kundalini, this you know, this venomous thing, you know, because when it bites you, when the snake bites you, the venom comes into your system and it starts to transmute you, it starts to change you. And that's how it works. That's what awakening is. Awakening is that kind of memory, but it's uncomfortable because it has to go into those old memories and it has to release and open up and it has to shatter and change and break the patterns and the paradigms, and that feels uncomfortable. And it manifests as a mess often in our outer life because it has to break through into a place where we're ready to go deeper and to take it inside. It's transitoriness, it's change. You know, and in that middle state, in the gift state, you know, there's light and there's darkness. You know, you can see the radiance, you can feel it emerging, you can feel that chrysalis, but, you know, this creature coming out, but you're still held and trapped, part of you, in the shadow. So you're half and half, you're between the worlds. Purgatorio, Dante called it. Purgatorio, you're caught between the worlds. And you keep dropping back into the shadow. And then you have another awakening, a mini awakening, and the gift comes alive and you feel that grace again. And then you dive back into the shadow. And then you emerge and then you're out. You're like, yes, this is the one. Finally, I've broken free. And you're back in even deeper sometimes. And it's a process, change, transmutation. This is the process of transmutation. And it's what contemplation does. It's where contemplation takes us. It takes us into this intense journey. And it leads to part 3, to the third image here, the transfiguration, you know, where you see the wounded healer ascending, and the wound has been transmuted, the wound has been cleaned, the wound has been fully embraced. So you go from allowing it to accepting it, and then here at the highest level, transfiguration, you get to the full embrace. And this is when the radiance dawns. There's a wonderful word from alchemy, rubedo. The rubedo is the gold, the red gold of the dawn of radiance from inside every cell. The aureole, you know, that you see the halos around the saints, you know, it's emerging from inside us because this kundalini has awoken it, this caduceus inside us. These different currents of yin and yang have combined, and they have given rise to this ascension inside us, this breaking free, this shattering, and this breaking free from the Maya, from the cycle of rebirth. Right back to that very first image, you remember the cycle. Suddenly you slip through the net. You know, you kind of find your way through the chains that hold you. You slip the chains. And it's a rebirth. And it's not just a rebirth of you. There's no you here. It's a rebirth of the entire cosmos. You know, it's what I call the great change. You know, the great change is when it comes to, you know, it comes to the individual, but it also one day will come to the collective. You know, and this is a wonderful thing, you know, the timing of the gene keys. It's very mystical. You know, the Chiron as a planetary object, you know, the planetary object that we call Chiron, which is a planetoid, a lump of rock in the outer solar system, was discovered in 1977. And it takes around 51 years to pass around the sun. And so 51 years is a very powerful time. At the age of 51, it's called the Chiron return. But what's interesting is that Chiron's return, in other words, so Chiron returned. Chiron returns to where it was when it was discovered in 2027, which is a very powerful date connected to the Gene Keys transmission, a date of great coherence, you could say, of great possibility, because the solar system is changing and moving us into new areas of potential healing, and all of this is part of the transitionary era that we're in, this realm that we're in. Gene Keys is a teaching that's come, a transmission that comes to help us with this transition, to help unlock this radiance. And as the radiance emerges inside us through our aura, it begins to move out into the auras of others, and that's when we become the healer. It's not that you go out and you say, I'm a healer, but your very presence is healing. Your very words carry the frequency of healing. You don't have to be a healer. You are one just through being awake. That's it. And immediately you are moving into the realm of deep compassion. So it's the Christ energy, really. I see Chiron as the esoteric Christ, as a version of the Christ that's coming into the world. So I want to thank Alex Gray for these amazing images, so that because they give us this incredible story, this ascension of through the process and this shattering, and you really get to see, I really honor the painter here, the artist, because he hasn't held back. He hasn't held anything back. He showed the shadow, and he showed the terrific shattering, and then he shows finally the prize, the goal. But it really shows you, I think, graphically, how profound it is, how challenging it is, how vulnerable we have to become, why we need this, why we need to hold our heart in this way, why we need to approach ourselves with compassion. Because it's the only way we can unlock that radiance. As I said, most of the time, we don't feel so radiant, most of us. We just don't. Some of us, we are getting there. But for many of us, it's not how we feel. And yet, it's always there when we accept the suffering that we're experiencing in the moment. It's the age-old teaching, being in the moment. But it's really about being an embodiment. It's about going into the difficulty that's inside you. And no matter what's happening in the drama outside, a pause allows you to come back into the space inside and feel and reconnect with this cellular knowing, this cellular glow that's in every cell, this tiny pinprick of light in the darkness. And I tell you, no matter how difficult things are for you, it's something you can always do, and it's something you can always rely on. You just close your eyes, you place your hands here, or on your belly, or wherever you're in pain. And you just go into that darkness, and you go into that numbness, and you go into that pain, and you find that tiny pinprick of light, and you will find it. It is in there. And you stoke it, and you fan the flame, and you just put your awareness on that, and it will grow and it will glow. And as it glows, you'll feel the life coming back into your body. You'll feel the light ignite the cells of your DNA, just one by one at the beginning, just little tiny bits. But the more you do it, the more powerful it becomes, the more palpable it becomes. The more you do it, the quicker it occurs, because it's a repatterning inside us. As we release more of that radiance, it creates a chain reaction inside us. And that chain reaction allows the radiance to just grow even more through this process of allowing, accepting, embracing. You know, in my state of perfect radiance, I saw something amazing. I can't really explain it, but I saw that every second is perfect and that every second is measured. You know, like I saw this incredible geometry between 1 second and the next. And of course, there isn't any space between 1 second and the next, really. But I saw this perfect unfolding in every second. Every second holds a sacred teaching. Every second, no matter how painful that second is, has a tiny pinprick of light at its core. Now, this is what, you know, when I did this, I've been doing this series called The Ecstatics. Some of you may have heard some of these monologues I'm doing. And the very first one I did was a medieval mystic called Mother Julienne. And she's one of my favorites because she has this one-liner. And it's just so beautiful. And it's the heart of everything. She discovered this. You know, all will be well, and all will be well, and all manner of things will be well. I say it all the time. I say it to myself. I say it to my kids. I say it inside me. You know, I say it as much as I can because I know that it's true. But that's what I saw, and that's what we all are here to remember. You know, that sense that there is a radiance hidden inside us. There is something so precious inside every second and inside every cell, and we call that the light. And the only way we can really describe that is as a radiant light, because that's how it feels, because it's love. You know, we experience it as love, but it may not be human love. It may not be that love. You know, it might start as that, like Hafeez's love for the beloved, for the woman of his dreams. But then it transcends the boundaries of that love, and it becomes just radiance. And you are caught in the rapture of that radiance. And that's a very, very precious thing. I'm very pleased and honored to have been invited to share it with you. All of you at CoSM and all of you watching this everywhere in the world, I beam this radiance, such as it is, to each and every one of you.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you.
And thank you, Alison Gray and Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, and to this incredible Jinkies community to tune in together. And may you take this day and take this incredible transmission deep into your being and into your art and into whatever your radiance wants to release into this blessed second. Every second is a sacred teaching. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.